Hello and welcome to Drilling Insight. I'm Jeremy Verdusco, host and editor of the Driller magazine. I'm joined today by drilling trainer, the driller writer, and co-host, Brock Yorty. How's it going, Brock?
Doing good. We're full swing into all of these regional conferences. So, I'm getting ready to speak at Maryland this week, Michigan next week, Kentucky the following week. So, it's fun, and this podcast leads right into that, right? Being able to share knowledge and talk about the industry.
Yep, spreading the word, traveling around and spreading the word. So on today's show, we have Jeff Lawrence. Thanks for being on the show, Jeff.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
So Jeff is Director of Commercial Accounts with Enertech Global LLC. The company builds geothermal and solar products, and we brought him on to discuss the state of geothermal, renewable trends, and how the new infrastructure law might affect how people who install his products do business. So let's get right to it, Jeff. We'll start with our usual opening question. Did you choose this industry or did it choose you?
It really kind of fell in my lap. In 1999, I started a new job as an engineer for a full service engineering and architectural firm. And my very first assignment was a 4-suite doctor's office. And they said, here, design a heating and cooling system. And so I got to work on it. And a day or two later, the architect walked by and said, by the way, this has got to be geothermal. I never heard of that. What are you talking about?
Geo what?
Yeah, exactly. So he gave me a little description about it. And, the old engineer architect cliche, you dumb architect, that's not going to work. And so I went to our quote HVAC discipline head. And when I told him what the client wanted, he all but cried. Well, it had to be geothermal. Engineers tend to be very stuck in their ways, and what worked the past 20 years works now. So I just started to sense a resistance to the technology of geothermal. And as I started to research it and learn more about it, of course, I thought it was kind of cool. So I like a challenge. I like the resistance to work against. And that's where it started, 1999. That 4-suite doctor's office, Dr. Lakula, up in Auburn, New York. And and ever since then, I wanted to do nothing but geothermal. So as I said, it kind of fell in my lap and came to me. So I've enjoyed it ever since.
That's a great start. So, how does the engineering and manufacturing industry view the role of drilling and drillers for geothermal? Being that first job in 1999, and yeah, let's do geothermal, but wait, I got to get some guys out here with this machine and drill some holes?
Yeah. So I was so lucky. Well, to answer your question, I mean, it's extremely important that, we all work together and find out how to do this and get this done. But that first job, I had never been exposed to. I mean, I've seen drilling, but not like this at the scale. And I'll never forget just the mess it made when somebody asked me about a drilling site. I say, picture the worst, muddiest, most awful mess you've ever seen. And this will be 100 times worse when you walk up to the geothermal site. Um, so, I mean, it's so important that we all work together and to understand what goes on while you're drilling, before we drill, to plan ahead for it. It's super important.
So, as everyone knows, we passed this big infrastructure bill last year, and I know it includes some funds for at least studying larger scale geothermal plants, the kind of things that can be of scale for hundreds, even thousands of homes. But does this bill have anything for smaller scale, like the heat pump type of installations that you're working with?
Shame on me for not knowing exactly what's in that bill that's going to benefit our industry. You just hear tidbits of what's in there, and I, just don't have the time to read a 4-inch thick book about what's in that thing. So Um, but yes and yes, I would have to say, we're hoping that the tax credit is going to come around to be permanent, which it was a 30%, and every so many years they chisel a little bit away. We're at 26 now, 26% tax credit.
Yeah, or even let it lapse, what is it, 5 or 6 years ago? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that did happen. Man, that was a tough year in 2017 when that went away. But um, so yeah, hopefully we get a lot more traction with the infrastructure bill. But looking at the larger scale geothermal production for hundreds or thousands of homes, that's an excellent question, because that is really the trend right now. Um, as an engineer or manufacturer or installer, you'd always wished and hoped that this will come around. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, we dreamed about this stuff, and now it's reality. But to have a large loop field that serves several hundred homes is very common now. There's companies that will come in and they will finance that. They'll drill it. They'll do all that work to kind of take that cost. And that's what it's all about. It's the first cost doing geothermal, because the drilling, let's face it, there's no cheap way to drill. As many times as people try to figure out how to make it cheaper, it's not possible. So these companies come in and they drill the entire loop field of what's needed, and depending on what the owner wants, the developer, whatever the case might be, they might set up a little micro utility and charge the homeowner $20 a month, or they charge them by the BTU, put a BTU meter or something like that. But it creates revenue for whoever owns that loop field. So I hope there's stuff in that bill to incentivize more of that, but it's already happening, with or without that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, so that kind of feeds into my next question a little bit. As you say, it's kind of already happening, and we're seeing it in areas like I think all of Canada, or maybe just Ontario, New York State, where they have various carrots and sticks. Either more carrot or more stick to move away from combustion heat. So you had mentioned first cost. Is that still an issue when interest is kind of creeping up and policies are creeping in that direction?
That'll always be something to talk about, is first cost and how do we eliminate that or reduce it. And that's where the incentives come in. The 30% tax credit, or the current rate at 26%, or it goes down to 24, that's going to really help offset the loop field costs for a typical homeowner. But the drive now for electrification is huge. It's a huge trend right now, a big buzzword. They're not distributing natural gas anymore in some areas. That was happening a couple of years ago in New York. I said, all right, the pipe is capped here. We're not going to do it anymore. And that's just a ripple effect. And the same thing has happened out west in Washington, Seattle, Oregon. In fact, I believe in Seattle, they can no longer do on-site combustion. I mean, it's just against code. So they have to use some type of electric-driven device to make everything, hot water, domestic water, or heating, whatever the case might be. So that's going to drive this harder. And again, that's where it's so important to get drillers back into doing geothermal. When we lost the tax credit, in the 2017, a lot of drillers just went back to doing conventional work, water wells or environmental type work, things like that. And they're kind of staying there because the work, they're just too busy to do something different like geothermal. So and it's tough to get them to switch industries like that. Once they're set up and doing this kind of stuff, they don't want to change, which that's the nature of a red-blooded American. We don't like change.
So I have two questions here now. How do we get more drillers involved into geothermal then?
Boy, I wish there was an easy button for that, because I'm telling you, that's the biggest hurdle that we have right now is getting drillers to commit to do geothermal. Because it's kind of a weird industry because they have to, installers and drillers have to work hand in hand. Typically, it's the installer, the HVAC installer subs out a driller. It's very rare that you get a one-stop shop where, a guy has an installation crew and a driller to do all that. So they're constantly subbing out the drilling work. And like I said, after that switch, when we lost the tax credit, so many drillers went back to doing other types of work. When geothermal became, it's always been popular, but it's just the industry's grown substantially. Just the drillers just didn't come back, because let's face it, they're probably worried about losing the industry again. Like I said, I wish there was an easy button, but how do we get them to come back and do more? It's stuff like this. We're talking about it. We got to raise the awareness, the interest, and we need to also recommend that they do peer-to-peer mentoring. Even though they're fellow competitors or whatnot, but a second or third generation driller, it's always done water wells, and now they hear this buzz about geothermal. They're reluctant to get into it because their father's telling them, nope, we just do water wells, and they're stuck on that. So it's a good thing to get to a show like we were just at the national show back in when was that, in December, back in Nashville. So we were there with IXPA, and that was just a great marriage to bring those two industries together to raise the awareness and show them, hey, geo is still here. And in fact, we're growing at a pretty big rate, and we need more drillers out there. So we're all ears to promote and help out.
Yeah, I believe one of the issues being that I came from a drilling family, I've also worked for a large geothermal company, Midwest, who has been all over the country. You have Chesapeake Geo out there. We have some large dedicated drilling companies to geothermal. When you're a water well drilling company, you drill a well, but you also have a customer and a maintenance program, and you have something. So if you have this large CapEx equipment and you end up drilling a geothermal project, when that project's done, any of those reoccurring customers and word of mouth that comes from the traditional water well sense have, hired somebody else because, new construction has a timeline. When you're out of water, the timeline is very short, which leads me into how can drillers and contractors and manufacturers promote this better so that we're doing new house builds with a water well and geothermal, that type of stuff? How do we all collaborate to promote better?
Well, I think it just goes back to the communication. Just the awareness. I'm hoping, with your magazine and various magazines, they start to see geothermal ads. They just got to see it. It's got to be in front of them. Going back to the shows, the national shows, we got to be there together and keep talking about it. That's so important. It's not going to come back overnight. It's the cost of doing that kind of work is substantial. And I don't know the difference between, what it costs a driller to do a water well versus, geothermal, but it's just a different mindset. When you're drilling geothermal, it's boom, 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 man. You got to keep moving because time is money. It's by the foot for sure. When you're doing a water well, you do that, whether it takes a day or two or something, and you do all that work and you got a constant service contract on it. With geothermal, it's not. So, it's just, again, it's that communication and training. Expert provides great training to do all that stuff. We just need a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring as well to get the interest going.
Yeah. So, you're with a manufacturer, obviously. So from that viewpoint, like what kind of challenges are manufacturers seeing in 2022? Are you having trouble sourcing? Are you having supply chain hiccups? Are you having trouble with, getting to distributors? How is your business looking in 2022?
Well, let me ask you a question. How much time do I have to answer that question? Because this could be a while, but to condense it,
Well, we've got about 10 months to go. So 10, 11 months to go. So
yeah, um, it is a challenge every day. I mean, every day there's something, a vendor's supposed to ship us, 400 units of this or that, and 10 show up at the dock, and there's no rhyme or reason. It is just horrendous what's going on right now. From getting components, raw materials, from sheet metal to heat exchangers, something as simple as a compressor blanket. We're having trouble getting just the little things. And of course, the infamous computer chip,
oh yeah.
that held us up for a while, and it still comes up once in a while. But it's just that one little thing can hold up a whole order, because when we manufacture something, we have to do the whole thing and complete it and test it. I know, like Ford, for instance, they got a bunch of vehicles sitting someplace waiting to put a computer chip in it. That's fine if they can do that, but we just can't. We have to have all the parts before it goes down the assembly line. That's just our process, and to test it, it's just too much time to bring it back in and retest it to put those parts in there. So that holds us up a lot. In fact, in 21, we had to send some people home, because we just couldn't build anything. And then you asked about freight or delivery, distribution, and all that. I mean, look what's going on at the border for Canada right now. Um, we have, I think there's at least 40 units sitting there, waiting to go across the border. They just can't get a truck to come over and get it. It's a challenge.
Yeah. So while we're talking about products, what are some recent innovations in this space that have, you think helped make installing geothermal systems either easier or maybe more profitable for some of these contractors we're talking to?
Well, innovations from Enertech, you're asking?
Yeah. Or
Okay.
or just in general in the industry, like what are you seeing? What's giving you the kind of wow factor these days?
All right, no, that's a fair question. So, industry-wide, um, gadgets and technology, it's just what people want. They want to look at things on their phone. They want to control their heating and cooling system. They want to see it from across the world. They want to show it at their buddies at the bar. Hey, here's what my house is at, stuff like that. Um, but that has helped the installer, the service contractor, because now they can see real time what's going on with that unit in the house. And I know a lot of installers, dealers alike, or service dealers, their whole business model is set up around this technology. So if a unit, goes off during the night, you can literally get push notifications on their phone. So they can, maybe reset it or cancel the alarm until they can get there in the morning. Or even if just in general something's wrong, they know what part to bring, what person to send there, because they're better at changing this part versus the other guy. And they just go there and take care of it. It is super slick. So that is definitely, technology like that is helping our industry tremendously. It makes it more competitive at the initial install, because the service contracts after they're a lot more defined. They know they don't have to go there and troubleshoot for 2 hours before they figure out what's happened. They know what's wrong before they get there. So that is helping our industry quite a bit.
So over the last couple of years, we've had some big projects come out. I was involved in the George Lucas project in Los Angeles. There was Microsoft. We've had Ball State Geothermal was, that big breakthrough one. I got to be the mud engineer on that job, and that was 10, 11 years ago now. What What big projects have you heard about that are coming out that the industry is excited about? Or, we thought the Detroit train station might be a big geothermal project, but we haven't seen much drilling going on there.
There is not there, and there is a lot of activity going on in Detroit. I've been talking with some developers up there. Well, it's local for you guys, but for me, there's a lot of interest, a lot of buzz of what's going to happen down there, right downtown Detroit. Setting up retail areas and more housing using geothermal, retrofitting geothermal. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and this is just a small little slice of the country. We can sit here for hours. I can tell you about this or that. What's happening. A big project like Microsoft or Ball State. I haven't heard of one of them in a while. I'm sure there's something in the works that's going to come around.
So as we're looking, kind of looking across the U.S. landscape, what state seems to be leading the way with most geothermal installations?
Definitely New York State. New York State, they used to compete with Pennsylvania. It was Pennsylvania and New York State. Every year they go back and forth who had the most installations, but by far it's been New York State. Why that is, I don't know.
That was my follow-up question. Like
Yeah,
that's
so
tough drilling up there. That's a lot of glacial rock, and so
it is a lot of rock, and I cut my teeth in that area. So when I hear, oh, it's tough drilling, I'm like, it is. So that's just what they're used to drilling up there. 400 feet into the rock. Okay, no big deal. We'll just keep going. So your question of why is it New York State? I think it's all the population in New York City that trickles upwards the Hudson Valley. They go up there and build new homes or renovate homes and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people are infiltrating, and of course the money that they're bringing up there is helping. Now during COVID, it went gangbusters.
oh yeah, I bet.
Long Island, it's just been absolutely insane, the amount of work that's been going on. That's what really is, I shouldn't say it's making the industry trip, but that's the bottleneck right now is drilling, available drillers to do all that work. I just, most of our customers that Enertech deals with up there, they have a backlog and they're waiting for a driller. That's all they're waiting for. And it's a crazy time that we're going through right now.
What is the major blocker for wide adoption of geothermal? New York's not the only heating dominant state. You would think with the Great Lakes states, what's blocking this?
It's always been just the awareness. Geothermal is certainly a buzzword now, because of the electrification push and the green push, zero carbon, net zero. They all go hand in hand. But just as Americans, we're conditioned to not think or worry about our heating and cooling system. As long as it turns on and keeps our home warm and cools it when we want it to be cool, we don't care. So that's really the mentality. And then when you introduce something different, like I said before, us blooded Americans, we don't like change. So, now here's something different. And not only that, it costs more. So, a typical homeowner is going to be resistive to, number one, change, and two, the cost of it. So unless we're clever in explaining up front, yes, it costs more, but you got this incentive, at the federal level. Sometimes there's utility rebates or state rebates. There's always some kind of financial tool that can help that. So that's the tough part, is selling it, using that bag of tricks that we have available to sell to the homeowner. It's just the awareness. It is really tough to break down that barrier. My favorite thing is to be at a home show and talk to a homeowner And I said, so describe your house. And they just, elaborate marble, this and polished granite countertops. So wait a minute, what's the payback on that polished granite countertop? Well, it's what I want. I don't care what it costs. So I try to spin the perspective and say, well, what do you want for your heating and cooling system? Do you want something efficient? Do you want something that's green? And just, you got to find that hot button that is going to reel them in and use that.
So, how do you think Europe and Netherlands have done this with this wide adopt culture of geothermal? We see it everywhere over there. They've been doing it for, 75 years longer than us.
It's mainstream. It absolutely is. It's amazing. A European or Scandinavian home, the heat pump is like an appliance in their kitchen. It's like literally underneath the countertop. It's just, like we said, it's the mainstream there. So why we're so far behind, I think it's a part of what my previous answer. It's just a mindset. Here it's just, yeah, we have heating, we have cooling, who cares, it works. But over there, energy probably costs a lot more, so they're a lot more mindful of how they utilize and use their energy. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And sadly, a lot of times their technology sometimes exceeds what we have here in the States.
So, putting on your philosopher's hat here, what does the industry look like in maybe 10 years? What do you see coming down the pipe?
Oh, that's my favorite question, looking in the crystal ball.
Yeah.
What are sales going to be like next year, 10 years, 5?
No, give me hard numbers. I want hard numbers.
Absolutely. It's going to grow. If hard numbers, it would be tough to do, but just to look at the whole HVAC industry and how many billions of dollars that is, geothermal is just 1% of the whole HVAC industry, maybe a little more than 1%, less than 2, and here we are in our little part of the world fighting for a piece of that 1%. And we're just going flat out. Our factory's full. All the manufacturers, their factories are busy. Lead times are out there, not just because of the supply chain, but because we're just busy. So what's it going to look like? We're going to see all the manufacturers probably gear up to be able to manufacture more. The technology is going to come around. We got to catch up with the Europeans and what they're doing. And pick an Asian country. They're just, they've got some just wild and great refrigeration technology, and it's getting to be like computer technology where it changes by the minute. So it's tough to adapt and bring all that technology here and make it work in our applications for geothermal, but it's coming. We're going to be doing it. And, I'm just blown away by what our company has done and what other manufacturers have done as well. It's looking bright. So it's going to grow. I hope we can grow from 1%. I mean, our industry goal really is 5%, but it's going to take a lot for all of us, manufacturers, drillers, distributors, manufacturers of all spectrum, from pipe to pumps to everything, to make that growth. But will we get there in 10 years? In the grand scheme of things, that's not too far away. But that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So great. Well, with that, we will wrap up today's episode. So thanks again, Jeff. So I'm fascinated by what you're telling me about kind of the ebb and flow of drillers in and out of geothermal, and kind of, I guess I intuitively know that, having covered the industry through some of these tax changes, but it's kind of fascinating to hear confirmation of that from the manufacturing side. So, Brock, what are some of your thoughts here?
I do see more and more large dedicated geothermal companies, and we had that in the 90s and the early 2000s. And it is with the the ups and downs of when it's been widely accepted. If I think about, we have Dandelion doing lots of stuff in New York right now. You know, we got a great company in Colorado that's dedicated fully to geothermal. The Midwest company keeps buying more and more rigs to be able to go from New York to California to the Midwest. Uh, it's tough moving equipment. It's jobs are dirty. You know, you have a lot of men and women out of town. Um, you know, it's we need more rural geothermal companies that want to, or drilling companies that want to do geothermal. It's just the value in it. And I believe when I hear the thing, drilling just costs too much, I'm going to say, hey, yes, you're an engineering company and you have this contracting stuff, but a new drill rig's $1 million. And then to put 2 people on it and be out of town and the rest of the support equipment, when a water well sells for $50, $60 a foot, and you're saying, "Hey, come drill the Obama Library for $12 a foot," you know that's it. You know, $1 million drill equipment requires real ROI when it comes to having that investment. So
Yeah, well, Brack, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think it even sparked a little bit. You hit it so well. That is that'll always be what's going on in our industry. All the cost, the cost, the cost. And there's so many people trying to reinvent the wheel to make it cheaper. And I can't say those are failures because there's some pretty good concepts out there.
Yeah,
But still, you gotta drill, and it costs money to do it.
great. Well, Jeff, where can the audience find out more about you?
Definitely can find out more about our company at enertechusa.com. I would encourage everybody to really look at IGSPA, the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. There are industry standards writers. They do training, even specifically well driller training. So it's a great organization to be looking into and get involved with. And I would definitely start there.
Great. Well, you can find fresh episodes of our show on our website or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Search Drilling Insight and hit that subscribe button. So also you can visit thedriller.com for the latest industry news and views, and follow us on the usual social media channels. So until next time, this is Drilling Insight.